Many inventions have taken several centuries to develop into their modern forms, and modern inventions are rarely the product of a single inventor's efforts. The computer is no different. The bits and pieces of the computer, both hardware and software, have come together over many centuries, with many people and groups each adding a small contribution. We start as early as 3000 BC with the Chinese abacus. How is this related to computing, you ask? The abacus was one of the first machines humans had ever created to be used for counting and calculating. Fast forward to 1642, and the abacus evolves into the first mechanical adding machine, built by mathematician and scientist Blaise Pascal. This first mechanical calculator, the Pascaline, is also where we see the first signs of technophobia emerging, with mathematicians fearing the loss of their jobs due to progress. Also in the 1600s, from the 1660s to the early 1700s, we meet Gottfried Leibniz, a pioneer in many fields, most notably known for his contributions to mathematics and considered by many the first computer scientist. Inspired by Pascal, he created his own calculating machine, able to perform all 4 arithmetic operations. He was also the first to lay down the concepts of binary arithmetic, how all technology nowadays communicates, and even envisioned a machine that used binary arithmetic. From birth, we are taught how to do arithmetic in base 10, and for most people that's all they are concerned with, the numbers 0 to 9. However, there are an infinite number of ways to represent information, such as octal as base 8, hexadecimal as base 16 used to represent colors, base 256 which is used for encoding, the list can go on. Binary is base 2, represented by the numbers 0 and 1. We'll explore later in this video why binary is essential for modern computing. Back on topic, progressing to the 1800s, we are met with Charles Babbage. Babbage is known as the father of the computer, with the design of his mechanical calculating engines. In 1820, Babbage noticed that many computations consisted of operations that were regularly repeated, and theorized that these operations could be done automatically. This led to his first design, the difference engine. It would have a fixed instruction set, be fully automatic through the use of steam power, and print its results into a table. In 1830, Babbage stopped work on his difference engine to pursue his second idea, the analytical engine. Elaborating on the difference engine, this machine would be able to execute operations in non-numeric orders through the addition of conditional control, store memory, and read instructions from punch cards, essentially making it a programmable mechanical computer. Unfortunately, due to lack of funding, his designs never came to reality, but if they had, would have sped up the invention of the computer by nearly 100 years. Also worth mentioning is Ada Lovelace, who worked very closely with Babbage. She is considered the world's first programmer and came up with an algorithm that would calculate Bernoulli numbers that was designed to work with Babbage's machine. She also outlined many fundamentals of programming such as data analysis, looping, and memory addressing. 10 years prior to the turn of the century, with inspiration from Babbage, American inventor Herman Hollerith designed one of the first successful electromechanical machines, referred to as a census tabulator. This machine would read US census data from punch cards, up to 65 at a time, and tally up the results. Hollerith's tabulator became so successful, he went on to found his own firm to market the device. This company eventually became IBM. To briefly explain how punch cards work, essentially once fed into a machine, an electrical connection is attempted to be made. Depending on where the holes in the card are, will determine your input based on what connections are completed. To input data to the punch card, you could use a key punch machine, aka the first iteration of a keyboard. The 1800s are a period where the theory of computing began to evolve, and machines started to be used for calculations. But the 1900s is where we begin to see the pieces of this nearly 5,000-year puzzle coming together, especially between 1930 to invented the world's first programmable computer. This device read instructions from punched tape and was the first computer to use Boolean logic and binary to make decisions through the use of relays. For reference, Boolean logic is simply logic that results in either a true or false output, or when corresponding to binary, 1 or 0. We'll be diving into Boolean logic deeper later in this video. Zeus would later use punch cards to encode information in binary, essentially making them the first data storage and memory devices. In 1942, with the computer the Z4, Zeus also released the world's first commercial computer. For these reasons, many consider Zeus the inventor of the modern-day computer. In 1937, Howard Aiken with his colleagues at Harvard and in collaboration with IBM began work on the Harvard Mark I calculating machine, a programmable calculator and inspired by Babbage's analytical engine. This machine was composed of nearly 1 million parts, had over 500 miles of wiring, and weighed nearly 5 tons. The Mark I had 60 sets of 24 switches for manual data entry and could store 72 numbers, each 23 decimal digits long. It could do 3 additions or subtractions in a second, a multiplication took 6 seconds, a division took 15.3 seconds, and a logarithm or trig function took about 1 minute. As a funny side note, one of the primary programmers of the Mark I, Grace Hopper, discovered the first computer bug, a dead moth blocking one of the reading holes of the machine. Hopper is also credited with coining the word debugging. 1942, the first digital computer was built by John Atanasoff and his graduate student Clifford Berry. The computer was dubbed the ABC. Unlike previously built computers like those built by Zeus, the ABC was purely digital. It used vacuum tubes and included binary math and Boolean logic to solve up to 29 equations at a time. In 1940, ENIAC was completed. Composed of nearly 18,000 vacuum tubes and large enough to fill an entire room, the ENIAC is considered the first successful high-speed electronic digital computer. It was somewhat programmable, but like Aiken's Mark I was a pain to rewire every time the instruction set had to be changed. The ENIAC essentially took the concepts from Metanesoft's ABC and elaborated on them in a much larger scale into its own field, from mechanical to electromechanical relays that took milliseconds to digital vacuum tubes that took only microseconds. From binary as a way to encode information with punch cards, to being used with Boolean logic and represented by physical technologies like relays and vacuum tubes, to finally being used to store instructions and programs. From the abacus as a way to count, to Pascal's mechanical calculator, the theories of Leibniz, Alan Turing, and John von Neumann, the vision of Babbage and the intellect of Lovelace, George Boole's contribution of Boolean logic, the progressing inventions of a programmable calculator to a stored program fully digital computer, and countless other inventions, individuals, and groups, each step a further accumulation of knowledge. While the title of the inventor of the computer may be given to an individual or group, it was really a joint contribution over 5,000 years, and more so